we go. Here we go, brownies. The kids cardiac, catch me in the Muni where the party at. Dog pound, turn up with the elf up on my starter cap. Brought him back, boy we from the land and we proud of that. Louder man, front to the back, here we go, I got him shouting that. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Stand up. Here we go, brownies. Game on the line, Joe Thomas, I promise. Jim Brown running through opponents, how I got this. I return like Josh Cripps, hand for the mini, got the dog pound jumping. Here we go, brownies. Here we go. Here we go, brownies. Here we go, brownies. Stand up. Here we go, brownies. Let's go.
Cleveland, this is for you.
And we're on. Sorry, I was having some issues. I didn't even know the countdown or what. My Wi-Fi kicked me off. It was a whole thing. So I think we're live. Dustin, can you hear me? Can you see me?
We're live, and I can confirm on Facebook. There's a little red thing around our picture, so I'm pretty sure we're live. And it tells me we're live 1 minute 13 seconds in, so we are good to go.
All right, cool. Well, as you can tell, I'm not in my normal studio environment, but we're going to kick it off. Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of the Here We Go Brian's podcast. I'm Allie Ellery, coming at you live from Magnolia, Ohio, this time around from my parents' back porch. So apologies if you hear the dogs in the background or the birds. I have no control over it. I don't have my microphone, so bear with me tonight. Join us.
Yeah. So quick story, Allie. We were at the National Football High School Hall of Fame this weekend, and our good friend Lori, who works for City Barbecue, was nice enough to supply the players and some of those guys down there. And she said, I live in Magnolia, Dustin, and I love Peggy Highsong to death. So again, how big of a world and how small of a world. And I did remember that, but it's just like, she's like, yeah, I see Allie's mom on a daily basis.
It's crazy. It's such a small world. It really is. But nonetheless, I'm here home in Ohio. So apologies if you hear anything in the background. We're going to do our best. About half an hour before we went live, there was just blasting through the streets of Magnolia like a tornado warning. So if that happens again, we're just along for the ride. It's a live show. So
I always like, if I have to shelter in place, you know why the podcast went dark.
How this goes. We're gonna hope for the best.
But the sun's shining there now, right? Now it's
a beautiful day right now. But we'll see. We'll see how it goes. Dustin, what's new? How you living?
We just talked about the National Football High School Hall of Fame. While you were out last week, Tim Couch was able to join the show. It was really interesting to catch up with him. He was one of the inductees, along with our good friend of the program, Eric Metcalf. Hanford Top Dog Dixon, Frank Minifield got inducted, as well as Allie. I will tell you this. I'd never met Archie Manning. Like, you hear the mystique of Archie Manning and what he was, the only two-time Heisman Trophy winner in college football history, and also being from The Ohio State University.
Yes, Archie Griffin.
Yeah. But to meet those guys, Archie, and also Cornelius Green, the first black quarterback ever to play for Ohio State. I mean, just to hear their stories and just how revered, like Woody Hayes, and just, because, at the end of the day, I'm not a diehard Ohio State Buckeye fan. So I was like looking through it through a different lens. Lewis Riddick and some other folks were inducted. So it was really cool to just have them share their stories of, like, from high school to college football to all the different things that these guys endured through high school. And, and again, the reason they're being inducted is because of their accolades at the high school level and what they did for their communities. And then meeting, Bob Sebo, the founder of Paychex, got inducted. So these guys, a very diverse group that they put in. So it was really cool to just be with those guys, partake in that over the weekend. Again, I always think I'm three people, and then I come home and I just exhausted, collapsed, died on the couch. But it was kind of cool. Spent some time with our friends down at the Tuscarora County Brownsbackers down there. Al, you're going to love this. I did a kids camp Friday, being a ginger kid, put the Sunblock 500 on, still went out there. And I swear to God, I got heat stroke because I was out there. Because what I was most concerned with? I was told you have to make sure that you keep the kids hydrated. So I'm squirting Gatorade, making sure all these little kids are hydrated. Well, guess who wasn't being hydrated? That'd be me. I wasn't drinking enough liquid. So, but that was a lot of fun to do that kids camp with Stump. So it was good to catch up with Stump Mitchell. He's a former inductee. So it was kind of good to chomp it up with him a little bit. And then Allie, I don't know if you saw this, our good friends of the program, Blake and Greg Williams, were on the Washington Defenders UFL football team, and they won the championship. So that was pretty cool to see what those guys did as well. So cool to see, just all the different things that happened this weekend. And then tomorrow night, Allie, we're going to be out. You know where we're going to be. And then the Joku Celebrity Softball game is all going down tomorrow night at East Lake where the captains play. So
yeah, that'll be great. Want to talk to you about our friends over at Mr. Hero. Here's a quick word from them.
SOS, I could use a hero right about now. My faith in love is upside down. H-E-R-O, where do we all go? SOS, I could use a hero right about now.
Mr. Hero's turning 60. We're proud to have served your favorite cravings for 60 years in celebrating what we do best. Thanks, Ohio.
I crave a hero.
If you don't know Mr. Hero, they're celebrating their 60th year of being in business. They have 104 Mr. Hero locations in Northeast Ohio alone. You need to download the app. They've got a buy one, get one offer just for signing up. They've got monthly coupons in the offers tab, 4 to 6 offers a month. It's a pretty good situation they got going on there. You can order online. You can earn points on every purchase. So please be sure to check them out over at Mr. Hero. Dustin, let's kick it off with the most relevant news. Just about an hour or two, it was released that Shedeur Sanders was cited he was driving and got a speeding ticket. Was going 101 miles an hour. What do you think of it?
Well, here's the thing. I'll be the first to admit I've went over 65 on that same freeway.
Sure.
But you're like, as have I, Allie says, of course. But 40 is 40, right? Like 20, I think they might give you a pass and say, look, what are you doing going 20 over a stop? But 40 over, it's a little excessive. He's got one of those souped up Dodge trucks. So, you put the metal to the floor and it'll get you to 100 probably pretty quick with that, with that Dodge supercharged engine. And, honestly, he was probably just seeing what it had in it. Like sometimes you'll see people like, Ray Showdog tells me like, he's like, man, I've opened up my Corvette on the freeway, gave it a little, honestly, probably wrong place, wrong time, and got a speeding ticket. 4th degree misdemeanor, $250 ticket, I think is what it is. I'm assuming he'll probably be like, yeah, I'm an idiot. That was dumb of me to be going 40 over, pay the ticket, move on. Then, of course, the media wants to jump onto those things and, and have a field day with it. But at the end of the day, it's a speeding ticket. We've all had, I have more than one speeding ticket in my life. So, it's just, it happens. Like, but 40 over, I think you got to give the guy a ticket and like, slow down. You don't need to be going 100 miles an hour.
When was the last time you got a speeding ticket?
The last time I got a speeding ticket was probably 3 or 4 years ago back in Idaho. So not any time in Ohio. So, but yeah. And you?
Yeah. I think it's probably been 5 or 6 years for me. So
well, after 5 years, you're in really good shape because you have no points. And
good. I'm good for now. Yeah, you're right. The media wants to run with this, make it into a situation, make it into a story. It's really not. Of course, we're going to talk about it just because the news broke an hour ago. And frankly, as I'm sure everybody is aware, there's not a lot to talk about right now. So this is what we got. This is what we're going to talk about. But really, yes, of course, safety first. That is the most important thing. The officer was doing his job in giving him a ticket. I'm sure that Shedeur will learn from this, and I'm sure that it probably won't happen again. But yeah, of course, we got to talk about it. But you're right, Dustin. The media is going to run with this one.
I think every player that's going to be there tomorrow, since he's going to be at the softball game, is going to give him a hard time. Because Shedeur is going to be there, and I guarantee people are like, "Come on, dog, what are you doing?"
I'm sure. And especially at that age, when I didn't have that kind of vehicle when I was his age, but I would probably be tempted to do the same thing. Get on a clear highway and see what that thing is made of. I get it.
My mom had a classic Mustang, and I'll never forget. I opened it up, and she's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "I'm seeing what she's got." Like, it's just a little bit of that. This thing wasn't meant to go 50 miles an hour. It's a sports car. Like, you know what I mean? So it's like, I get it. Like, it's just a little like, it's a souped up, charged, Dodge truck. It probably goes 140, 150, probably even goes faster than that. But
it probably does. All right, what else do we have? Let's go around the league right now. Just some other things that are present. We'll start really as it closer to the Browns, then we'll open it up here. But since I have last been on the podcast, it's been 2 weeks now. The whole Nick Chubb situation, Dustin, I'm sure last week you talked about the letter that he wrote to Cleveland in a very emotional, heartfelt letter. Obviously going to Houston, we don't like that, but it is what it is. This is unfortunately something that just happens to most running backs in their career, towards, mid to end of their career. They move on to another team. This is unfortunately just how it happens. This is how it plays out. You look at almost any other running back, any other great running back in the history of the NFL, they've played on multiple teams. Doesn't mean that Nick maybe won't come back to Cleveland at a certain point in his career, maybe to finish things out. But right now, obviously, we would have liked to have seen him in orange and brown. I'm sure Nick probably preferred to stay in Cleveland, but a pretty good situation for him down in Houston behind Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and for me, for fans in general, it's just tough because, Allie, you've been to Browns games. I would say the most number one purchased jersey is a Nick Chubb jersey, and then some alumni jerseys, maybe a David Njoku, and a couple others. But like, he's clearly like the number one selling, Browns jersey that people. And I guess Myles Garrett, probably 95, 85, and 24 are the third most jerseys. And those people, we enamor ourselves around because we love the play and we love the person that they are at the end of the day. So, yeah, does it hurt? Now, I will say this. The Browns did send out a very classy goodbye. I thought it was very well done. And what I mean by that is, Jimmy and Dee literally said, you will forever be in our hearts. And when it comes for you to retire, you're going to be put into the Ring of Honor. Like literally already saying you're going to be in the Ring of Honor in Cleveland in the stadium, which I thought was pretty profound to already literally say, don't worry, you're going to get your flowers when they're due here in Cleveland and you'll be forever. But, he just was such a, we talk about this with players that come to Cleveland and they don't get it. And I talk about this a lot, players that come here and get it, like Njoku gets it now, right? Like he says, I was a kid when I came here and Cleveland made me a man. He loves Cleveland, right? Like he said, I'll run through a wall for Cleveland. Nick Chubb got it. Hard worker, didn't say anything, put his head down, worked hard. He's he's gritty like a Clevelander. Like we love that about a player, right? And I think that's why people became so enamored with him from the get-go. He did all of his talking on the field and did selfish things like run out of bounds, to know that if I run out here at the 1 yard line, we're sealing the win today. Like there's no getting out of it. And that's why people love him. And I think that's why I think it hurt a little more, right? Just because his 7 years here, 7+ years. And, we came to love him. And like you said, maybe he'll come back and retire as a Brown. Well, I'm sure he'll come back and retire as a Brown. But the fact that he may finish his career here, but you know what? I wish him the best, man. If he goes and gets over 1,000 yards this year and ends his career with 10,000 yards, man, that almost tells me he should be in the Hall of Fame at that point. If he's knocking on 10, 11, 12,000 yards in his career, then we can have conversations like that because he would have had that tutelage. But here's one thing I'm going to never do. I'm never going to bet against Nick Chubb. No. So I think whatever Nick Chubb does down there, he's going to make the most of it.
One thing, if you are looking for a fantasy situation, definitely not your RB1 in Nick Chubb because he's not going to get all the carries, but a lot of the goal line situations down there in Houston, I would imagine he's going to steal a lot of touchdowns from Joe Mixon. So if you're looking for a guy just to have, I would consider I know Jason, he cost you a touchdown fantasy that time he went out of bounds, no score there. But this year, if you're looking for a fantasy running back, definitely something to consider for two reasons. One, he's going to steal some of the carries down at the goal line situations from Joe Mixon. But two, Dustin, you mentioned it. I would just never bet against Nick Chubb, especially on a new team, a new situation, trying to prove himself to the rest of the NFL. Yeah, I'd throw a flyer on Nick Chubb, my fantasy team, but that's just me. All right, moving on. And this is just a kind of a weird situation. We don't have to spend a lot of time on this. You hear anything about this whole Aaron Rodgers getting married situation and not being real?
No. Okay. So,
Yeah.
No. So hang on. So I know that a reporter asked him at his press availability, so are you married? And he said, yes. And he said, how long? And he said a couple months. That was kind of, that was, and that was the extent of it. So
that was
educate me and the audience.
So basically, it's very not a huge development, but his family has come out and said that they don't think that he's actually married, and there's no public record of Aaron Rodgers being legally married. So it's just like a really weird thing, and it just like, I mean, to each their own, and do what you want to do. I mean, I guess Aaron Rodgers is just married to the game, I guess, but do what you want to do. But like, just this whole thing surrounding that guy has been so weird.
Well, hang on. Where was he spotted? On a beach where? Australia. Maybe he got married in a different country, and that's why nobody can find any records on it. Maybe I'm breaking the story there, but like, I mean, if you're searching for marriage records in the United States, yeah, that's pretty easy to do as an American. But if he got married in a foreign country, that's going to take some digging to figure out if he got married in a foreign country. Maybe he got married in a foreign country.
Maybe.
I just thought about that because that's where we're from.
Just weird. The whole thing is weird. Continuing around the league, going down to Cincinnati, that whole situation that they've got going on there with holdout from Trey Hendrickson as he awaits a new contract, and he has all the leverage in the world because, especially with Shamar Stewart, their rookie first round pass rusher, who has still just in negotiation with his contract, still hasn't signed, is sitting out. Trey Hendrickson has all the leverage. And similarly, TJ Watt, he's holding out right now for a new contract. It just seems like, Dustin, this offseason has just been the year for the AFC North and pass rushers, like just getting paid. You've got Trey Hendrickson, Myles Garrett, and TJ Watt, just kind of crazy. Well,
do you think Myles Garrett reset the market? I think yes. Right when he signed that extension, like he said, "Look, this is what this is the gold standard, right?" Myles Garrett, and I don't like Watt as a player. I can respect his game, but he's been a cornerstone of the Pittsburgh Steelers, just like the Browns for Myles Garrett, and he deserves a contract. So I get that. He is the guy on that part of the end of the ball. So. Yeah, I don't blame him for wanting to get paid. I mean, yeah, he's like, I'm seeing what these other guys are getting paid around the league. It's time for me to get paid.
Yeah, I mean, and rightfully so. Look, we can hate on TJ Watt all we want, but I mean, you see what Myles Garrett's making. He's currently slated to make half of what Myles Garrett is going to make this year. And look, I just don't envy the situation down in Cincinnati.
He's not half the player.
Well,
yeah, he's not half the player, right? Exactly.
Arguably. I mean, TJ Watt deserves to get paid. I'm going to say that. Like, I think that he is a very good player. He deserves to get paid. And if you're Pittsburgh, they should be paying TJ Watt. We would be pounding the table if this was Myles Garrett and the roles were reversed. Pay the player. He's got the production. He's got the accolades. Pay the player.
Mm-hmm.
I still think that Myles is better, but nonetheless, pay the player. Down in Cincinnati, that's a whole disaster. I think. That defense is going to be a nightmare for Cincinnati. And because of that, I think that Cincinnati is going to take a huge step back. I really do. I think that they were a disappointment last season. I think they will continue to disappoint. They put all their eggs in one basket, and they had to with Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Joe Burrow. Defensively, I don't know what they're going to be able to do, honest to God.
Yeah, for me, it's like, they kind of took the poison pill. They made sure that their wide receivers were paid handsomely, and obviously they had to pay Joe previously, but they put all their monies in one basket. Like, to me, that's dangerous to put. And now I'm saying this from a Browns fan that we spent $250 million on, but I'm saying, like, they don't have a little, as far as contracts, I guess there's just not a lot of balance. It's very offensive heavy money load and not so much on the defense. So it's very interesting to me how they did that.
Yeah. All right. We're going to bring David on. This is going to be the medical moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards.
Here we go, Brownies. Here we go. Woof, woof.
Hello, welcome to Lorello Vineyards, Larry and Kim Lorello. We have a beautiful Here We Go Brownies wine that we would like to offer to you this season as we did last season. We have several other award-winning wines, lovely entertainment and events coming this summer. So come and see us, wine a bit, you'll feel better.
Yeah, we're looking forward to seeing you at the Muni lot this fall. Go Browns.
All right, let's bring him on. The husband of the program, Dr. David Ullery. This is Medical Moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. David, what's happening?
Hi, Allie and Dustin. Not a lot. Just happy to be back on the show tonight.
Well, welcome back. It's David. I feel like I haven't talked to you in like a week. I haven't been home in like 10 days. So nice to see you.
I know. No, we all miss you here in the Ullery house. We cannot wait for Mom to come back home tomorrow.
All right, David, let's get into it. What do you have tonight? There's not a lot going on in terms of, medical things as it pertains to the Cleveland Browns, but I'll turn it over to you. Teach us something.
Yeah, so had to reach a little bit deep here on the depth chart just to produce any sort of injury news. Oh my gosh, I am sorry, Birdie. The minute I start talking,
Birdie wants attention all day, every day.
They've
she
been
does.
cooped up inside all day, so they're playing, they're having fun. Like I can't blame them, but she hadn't barked for the last hour until just now. So
that's the way it goes.
And here comes Jeff. I mean, it is without fail. Here, 5 seconds. There he is. No.
Yep, there he is. It's a live show.
So, in terms of some injury news, we've got two things to kind of look at pretty deep. The depth chart. One of them, I mean, not insignificant. The first one I'll go with is the center, Justin Osborne, who is third on the depth chart, which I mean is not that buried, especially given the offensive line injury history. He was placed or reverted back to the IR yesterday. Back on the IR yesterday for a undisclosed injury. They didn't, at least from what I can tell, there hasn't been any news or just like disclosure on what the injury is, but back on the IR. And now there's only at least two listed centers on the depth chart. However, we know interior offensive linemen can kind of move around and shift around if they need help there. So again, not anybody many of us have even oh my gosh, heard of maybe or are totally aware of, but that's one. The other one similarly was a wide receiver. We know that they have a lot of depth at wide receiver right now, mainly so that the quarterbacks can get reps. We know that they need people for the quarterbacks to throw to. And so right now we know they have a lot of wide receivers just to, get everybody reps. And so Jaseem Reed was waived last month due to an injury, cleared the waivers, and so he moved to the IR. So he stayed on the roster on the IR, but now they have parted ways with him or released him altogether. He was an undrafted free agent out of the University of San Diego. And again, fairly insignificant, but just in case anybody was paying attention to all of the wide receiver depth, that's what's going on right now. This is crazy. This
is nuts. This is crazy.
Gosh. I should have been the one that went outside, not the dogs.
You know what, David, while you're getting situated and talking about that, Larry asks, and he says he's sick to his stomach about Nick Chubb. What can he take for it?
He's always looking for a remedy to deal with the woes of being a Browns fan, and I totally understand it. I think you've got probably some things in stock that you could find that might take the edge off for you at home.
Like the Here We Go Brownies wine. That'll do it.
That's exactly right. So those are really the only two stories out of camp when it comes to injury right now. Otherwise, it seems like nothing big has broken for other players. So other bit of conversation piece that I'll kind of go on or discuss today is kind of our little series we've been doing of the Browns injury predictor from draftsharks.com. So we've gone through quarterbacks, running backs, and tight end. So today we'll talk about wide receivers. They really just do the ones, maybe the twos on the depth chart. So we only got three receivers to go through. Jerry Jeudy, Deontay Johnson, and Cedric Tillman are the three that they have listed. So, it makes sense. Those are the guys who are going to get the majority of the snaps and the catches this year. So we'll just start at the top with Jerry Jeudy. Overall, his injury risk is rated at a medium for him in his career right now. He's been in the league for 5 seasons with a total of 8 injuries. So he's had 8 injuries over those 5 seasons. When we look at what those injuries were, the first 3 in 2020 were all in-game injuries where he maybe left the game, but either came back or didn't finish, but came back the next week and missed no games. Really the most significant one was in 2021. He had a high ankle sprain in week 1, was on the IR for 6 games, but then returned and played the rest of the season. Anything else significant in 2022, missed 2 games with the strained muscle in his ankle. And in 2023, missed 1 game, week 1, with a hamstring strain. So overall, fairly healthy. Not a huge injury history to go over with. He has missed a total of 9 games when we look at that. And again, 6 of them were from 1 injury alone, and he recovered from that. His injury per season's 1.8 per season so far. Season probability this year is 45%. So definitely on the higher side, but still under 50%. Per game probability is 3.5%, and he's projected to miss 1.2 games this season. So like they said, middle of the road, pretty medium. Looking at Deontay Johnson, he's actually listed as a very high injury risk.
Really?
Which is interesting because he has a similar number of injuries as Jerry Jeudy, similar number of years in the league, but for whatever reason, he's at a very high risk. And I think, I kind of tried to figure out what exactly their algorithm is here. And, they don't totally tell you everything. They kind of keep it under wraps, but they do say they have the largest database of injury history for the last 30 years, and that there's some NFL teams that have paid them for it. So they do have a lot of data to go off of. And they said they use a lot of pretty much like AI or analytics to kind of create this algorithm to determine injury risk. And so they even go on to say that they've been fairly successful in predicting injuries in recent years. And so they've got a little bit of, what do you want to say? A little bit of like precedence in terms of predicting these injuries and spitting out these numbers. So I'm very curious to see how this plays out after the season ends. But so Deontay Johnson's been in the league for 6 years with a total number of injuries at 9. His major injuries include in a back injury where he missed 1 game. 2021, a knee injury, again, just missed 1 game. Biggest injury for him in 2023 was a hamstring pull. He missed 5 games with that, was placed on the IR, but then did return week 7 and played the rest of that season. And then October of 2024, missed 1 game with a rib sprain or a rib pull. So again, one specific injury kind of takes up most of those games that he missed, with 8 total games being missed, excuse me. And so on average, he's got 1.5 injuries per season, but they put his season probability of sustaining an injury at 80%. Wow. This is by far the highest number we have of any player on the roster to date. Our highest before that was Njoku with 51%. So they're saying there's a 4 out of 5 chance that he has an injury this season. And they say that he has per game probability, he has a 10% risk of having an injury in any one specific game. Again, these are pretty high numbers for a guy who, has a total number of 9 injuries. He doesn't have a ton of really serious ones. They're projecting him to miss 2 games this season. So that number isn't super high, but it's not insignificant either. And so that's the one that, there's already questions around his ability to come back in the league and still play and produce and what kind of player he's going to be. And so combining that with his injury risk based on these numbers, it's definitely concerning, but hopefully with the new kind of health and recovery squad that we saw the Browns put together that we went over a couple of weeks ago, they can reduce these numbers and prevent injuries or make them last for a shorter amount of time. And then lastly, Cedric Tillman, he has a low risk for injury, which is good news. He's been in the league for 2 years now with a total number of injuries of 2. In 2024, he's had 2 concussions essentially. January of 2024, he had a concussion where he missed 1 game. It was week 18, he missed the wild card game after that week 18 concussion. And then last season, he did have a concussion in week 12 against the Steelers, and he missed the rest of the season, or 6 games for that. So while only 2 injuries, he's missed 7 games. But again, these are concussions. These are not soft tissue injuries or other sort of musculoskeletal injuries. This is more, what we know of or what we're familiar with some other players like Denzel on the team. And so they put his season probability of sustaining an injury at 35%. per game probability at 2.6% and projected to miss 0.6 games this season. So, I mean, overall, like pretty low risk, but not a lot of data on him either. But I mean, in the 2 seasons he's played in the NFL, he hasn't sustained any sort of, musculoskeletal injury. But they do list his non-NFL injuries. And in college in 2022, he had a high ankle sprain and he missed 6 games for that. So nothing in the NFL thus far, and hopefully it stays that way. But again, just some interesting numbers to look at, and hopefully we can come back and compare at the end of the season what this looks like.
Yeah, that is really interesting. And David, it actually kind of, I don't know if you saw my text, but I text you and said, can you stay on for a few moments after we do the medical moment just to talk about the receivers? Because Jason, I saw that you posed a question in the comments just a little bit ago asking about the receivers. And I want to get into it and how these receivers will be used, because I think this is a huge area of concern for this team. There are still some question marks with the receiver position. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about how cool this site is, David, and I'm really glad that we're going group by group, and I'm actually floored by that Deontay Johnson situation, it being 80%. That's very
crazy.
high.
Yeah, very high.
It really is.
And I mean, they don't really have any analysis or narrative on it in terms of where that's expected, why it's that way. But I mean, it is a very high risk, which is the highest rating that they can really give on this website in terms of injuries and injury history and things like that. And so it's just something to really look out for. They did, let me see if I can pull it up real quick. I had it and then I got rid of it here, but they have their advice section and they talk about injuries. And I just kind of searched injuries, and they did talk about their strategy for how they, here we go, injury predictor, how they do this. So real quick. So, okay. They have the most comprehensive injury database publicly available. Like I said, some NFL teams have bought the data injury from them, and it compiles over 30 years of injury history. And they say, it doesn't come from an unreliable third-party feed. They use a combination of video review and media reports to record all of the injuries accurately. And then they apply advanced machine learning that considers over 1,000 factors to define and track player injury trends. And so they say you end up with a model that solves for the stickiest factors to predict injury outcomes. And they go on with a little caveat, you cannot predict every injury, but they can predict which players have the higher injury probability and who's most likely to miss game time. And so there's an article from 2022 that they kind of wrote demonstrating the power behind this tool that they've made. And they cited 3 different players where they had strong hit rates on injuries, including Tua, Allen Robinson, and Zach Ertz. And so they just kind of, they're kind of beating their own chest, but essentially showing, hey, this data works. And it at least does a pretty good job of predicting these injuries of occurring. And so, I think it's a really interesting tool, and I'm glad that, we've been able to incorporate it into our medical moment discussions.
Well, David, I think it's something too. If I was one of these players, right? If I was Deontay Johnson and this information was available to me, which I'm sure that it is, I'm sure, the Browns maybe were one of those teams that said, hey, we're going to pay for this and have this information readily available. If I'm Deontay Johnson or somebody that is at a high risk, I'd be like, okay, I'm happy to know this information. I'm going to do X, Y, Z to prepare my body going into the season. And here's just a quick one, David, for you. Bam and Noob say you should practice medicine. So I don't know if you're interested in that at all, but that's
yeah. I'm pretty happy with my current career at Lowe's, but if that ever doesn't work out, I will definitely consider medicine at some point.
Hey, David, as I like to say, you just don't play a doctor on podcasts. You're a real one too. David, you'd be interesting with this data. Like you said, it shares college as well, and that kind of just perked my ears a little bit. Do you think, and I don't think teams would share this publicly, but if teams pay for this data, like you say they're doing, do you think this would go into how they draft a player, right? Not just a guy in the injury, but would they use this, analytically when they look at a draft board and go, man, this guy, based on this probability, it'd be interesting if like analytic teams, I'm not saying I know an analytic team, but I think I do, would more of the analytic leaning football teams take this from a draft perspective? Do you think you could? I think I could see that happen.
Well, I mean, to be honest, they already have that information. I mean, that's what the combine's for, and that's what kind of all of their evaluation from the time the football season ends until April and the draft occurs what they're doing, what they're looking at. So, I mean, that's part of the medical examinations, the disclosures, all of the information that you gather. I know not every player goes to the combine, but still that information is made available. And I know we kind of talked about it during that time in the late winter, early spring about like, how is this not like a HIPAA violation? Like, how are they able to do this and whatnot? But at the end of the day, yes. I mean, to answer your question, the short answer is yes. They can definitely use this information as kind of influencing their decisions to draft players. But I think they already have that information. And this itself isn't necessarily novel in the idea that it's also including college injuries. It's more or less the purpose of them including these college injuries is to take an overall look at the player, not just in the NFL, but in their playing career in college too. Because I mean, all these players have played for at least 3 years in college. We know that, those are the rules in the NFL if you want to, make it to the league. And so those injuries, I think, while maybe, taken with a little bit of a grain of salt, because certainly training is different, recovery is different, especially if you're not at a powerhouse Division I school. It still does play a role in injury history and if they're more likely to sustain an injury or have long-term problems because of it. So I think it's just valuable in the sense that we can get an overall picture of this player from the time they started playing high-level organized football.
Yeah.
Patty asked a good question here. Do they share their high school injuries as well? I'm curious about that. I was actually thinking.
Not that I've seen, at least on the three from today, the wide receivers. I don't see anything about high school. To be fair, they only categorize it as non-NFL. And so it would depend on the dates, but at least for Jerry Jeudy here, he has a non-NFL meniscus tear which he underwent surgery to have it repaired in 2018. But he was drafted in 2020. And so we know that would have happened in college.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, cool. Well, that was the medical moment brought to you by our friends over at Lorello Vineyards. David, we're going to keep you on. But first, a quick word from our friends over at Stadium Mustard. David, take it away. Just kidding. Guys, if you don't have Stadium Mustard in your kitchen this season, you're doing it wrong. The iconic brand, the iconic taste, full up from ballparks to backyards and everywhere in between. Stadium Mustard is a smooth brown mustard rich in both taste and tradition. By the way, it's loved by millions, so be sure to head on over to stadiummustard.com to shop now. And additionally, real quick, also want to tell you about our friends over at City Barbecue. Guys, if you are catering an event and you need some good food, head on over to City Barbecue or just for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. Head on over. They've got award-winning meats, sauces, and sides. They do it right. So please be sure to check out our friends over at City Barbecue. David, I want to keep you on because I want to have a conversation about – I just want to have a conversation with you. But specifically about receivers.
Hey, it's been 10 days. It's been 10 days. I get it.
I missed the guy. But Jason – he asked a good question in the comments, who the hell do we have at receiver is basically what he said. I want to go through the depth chart because like I said, I do think that this is an area of concern, but they have brought on a lot of guys, whether that be through UDFA signings, free agent signings, even just through basic walk-on tryouts for the Cleveland Browns, essentially, just to have people that can catch the football for these four quarterbacks. But at the top on the depth chart, we've got Jerry Jeudy, Cedric Tillman, and Deontay Johnson. And then pretty much a large drop-off after that. When we look at kind of the second string here, you've got Caden Davis, Jamari Thrash, who I think will step up this year. I really do. And DeAndre Carter. And then beyond that, Michael Woods, David Bell, Gage Lavardian. And then kind of the fourth group of guys where you got Cade McDonald, Luke Floria, Jalen Gill, guys like that. I would have liked to have seen the Browns bring somebody else in, and maybe they still will. Obviously, we know that this isn't the final 53-man roster. There's still a lot that can happen with this team. But when we look at the receivers, guys, I am a little bit concerned because one thing, and Dustin, this, I have said probably since we've been doing this show, there have always been redundancy with the players at receiver position for the Cleveland Browns.
The skills
that can do the same thing. It's not like you've got a speedster, a slot receiver, and a big-bodied receiver. We are kind of still in that situation where I look at Cedric Tillman and Jerry Jeudy and I say, hey, these two are great in the sense that they can do similar things. And then Deontay Johnson, he is a little shiftier, maybe with short route running. I'm still curious to see them bring in an absolute speed guy or a big-bodied player like they had in DPJ years ago. But I guess when we look at this, who do we think, let's just say the top three guys here, Cedric Tillman, Deontay Johnson, and Jerry Jeudy. I mean, what are they doing with these guys? Who's lining up at the slot? I mean, what do you guys think about this?
I mean, these are all, they're the same receiver. I mean, you're exactly right. When we look at, I was just pulling them up from our lads because I wanted to give a little trivia and ask Dustin if you knew how many receivers were on the depth chart right now, but it's 13. You listed them all, and it's crazy. 13 receivers on the depth chart, and they need to get down to like
13.
Yes, 13. And they need to get down to like 6 or 7, which is nuts. But so, look at these players. Look at their size. Jerry Jeudy, 6'1", 195. Cedric Tillman, 6'3", 215. And then Deontay Johnson is like 5'10", 183. You're right. There is not a true wide receiver one in terms of like size and just gonna body somebody and get up and get that ball. And then also, these guys are more of that kind of slot receiver, but not like a turn and burn kind of guy who's just going to be able to chunk it up and throw it downfield. And so I think you have to, if this is the depth chart, if these are the wide receivers that you are going to start the season with and get down to the final 53-man roster, the offense has to be very uniquely tailored in terms of your play calling and your scheming and your route running to use all three of them in some form, fashion, or another. And who knows, maybe we'll see Harold Fannin Jr. turn into more of that wide receiver one kind of look where he lines up outside because he's a big body and he can at least kind of fill that role in that void where we don't have someone. And maybe that is something to look out for, but he's a rookie. Like you can't rely on that. And so
you can't ask that of him.
It's going to be very interesting. And I think that's maybe part of the reason why we've heard Stefanski say, like, we're getting back to my offense. I'm going back to my roots, and we're going to run the ball more. We got Quinshon Judkins. He's going to be kind of our bell cow. And we've got 2 tight ends. We're going to be in, 12 sets a lot. And it's going to be very interesting to see how they maneuver and scheme this offense with the wide receivers that they have.
Well, David, that's such a good point. And really, I was going to say something similar in the sense that because they've got guys that can do a lot of the same and they don't have a true big-bodied guy out there. I mean, you do have that in David Njoku. We know that he's more than just a slow tight end out there. He's definitely an athletic, big-bodied receiver, if you will. But they have to be ultra efficient offensively. And we know that they were not last year. But getting back to the identity of 2020, and we heard Joel Bitonio come out and say that that's what they're going to be. They're going to be in heavier formations. We know that they currently, let me just make sure. Yeah, currently we've got a fullback on the roster. I mean, my God, guys, if we go back to 2020, 2021, if you remember, they traded for Andy Janovich. They traded for a fullback and they used him. So I would anticipate that will be kind of the identity going into the season. They have to be ultra efficient. And I think that we will be able to get that out of this offensive line, this running game. And of course, you do have Dylan Sampson, too, that can catch the ball out of the backfield. Very talented in that regard. But also at the quarterback position, let's just kind of segue into that. Ultra efficient, some short to intermediate stuff that's going to open things up, play action, things like that. I think we will get back to this wide zone situation. But because of kind of the question marks with the pass catchers, we're going to have to be efficient in other ways. Dustin, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. What is Jamari Thrash's size? What is he?
Let me pull it up.
Because that is one person that
he's 6 foot 190.
Okay, because that was one person that Stefanski went on of his way to say how good of a camp he's had so far. To one of those guys, to your point, Allie, that he may be one of those guys that rises to the occasion, and we're like, wow, we didn't see that, and he comes out. You're right. We don't have like that 6'3" vertical type of 6'4" run wide receiver that just goes up and basically gets the ball, right? Like that's his entire job is it's a 50-50 ball deep. But we have 4 quarterbacks on the roster, so maybe we can trade one of those guys off. It is crazy that Mary Kay had mentioned that she would not be shocked if all 4 are on the roster when the season starts. And I'm like, okay, that's interesting.
But did it last year. I mean, anything is possible. Anything is possible with this team. That's for sure. But we just have to get back to efficient football. And I think when you look at this Browns defense, everybody, I mean, this is a very, very, very talented defense. We saw it 2 years ago. They were the number 1 defense in the league. Last year, they were very good. They were just asked too much because we had a very inefficient offense. This year, if the offense can produce just a little bit more than what they did last year, we're going to have a much better season. It's going to be much better football. It's going to be more pleasing to the eye. I mean, that last year was just difficult. It was brutal. And you asked so much of so many players. Obviously, all of this is health related, and assuming that people can stay healthy, these guys can stay healthy. And that's why they brought in new training staff, of course. I am hopeful to see some of the changes that have been put in place and excited to get back to what Kevin Stefanski does best. And I think that all 4 of these quarterbacks will thrive in that situation. You could put any of them back there, and I would feel relatively optimistic. Now, of course, we'll know more about these quarterbacks as we get further into training camp and into the preseason. It's very, very premature to say these things right now about the quarterbacks, but I'm just imagining Joe Flacco back there running Kevin Stefanski's offense. That's something to be excited about. That is something to be excited about. And if Shador Sanders is as accurate as we think he is, that's another thing to be excited about. Or Dylan Gabriel with as big of an arm, with the velocity that we know that he has, or Kenny Pickett with his experience. You can kind of talk me into these situations. If they can just be this much more efficient, we have an entirely different situation on our hands. Now, I'm not saying we've got a Super Bowl team here. That is not the case, but certainly, better than where we were a season ago.
Yeah. I think, when you bring up the quarterbacks and kind of how they're going to be suited in this offense and this scheme, the quarterbacks that they have, like you said, do fit it really well. And if you consider Dylan Gabriel, just for example, we can't say that he's going to be the starter for sure, but think about the offense he was in. Obviously, there's a little bit more gadget style plays, and it's a little bit more creative when it comes to Oregon's offense. But at the end of the day, they thrive on these smaller, kind of quick, shifty wide receivers and running backs, and they get a lot of almost like zone beaters, or where you have guys within like 10 yards of the line of scrimmage, and it's short completions, and then you kind of get yards after the catch and make moves after that. Yeah. And that's what these receivers are more poised to do. They're not going to be big threats down the field necessarily, but if you can kind of recreate that offense for him, or even for Shador, I think that fits their skill set very well. Mm-hmm. And for Joe, it's just he's got the experience and the veteran poise to know how to read a defense and how to make some reads and get throws that way too. And so I do think that at least kind of combining the ideas of the wide receivers that they have, the scheme that Stefanski likes to run, and the quarterbacks available, you can definitely see a way for this to work and to have success and actually be efficient, just as you're saying it needs to be.
Yeah. One thing when we look at this, I'm sitting here saying, wow, we have some concerns at the receiver position. And this is going to sound crazy what I'm about to say, but yes, we do have concerns at the depth of the receiver position, or maybe the just differentiating skill sets at the receiver position. But maybe that is to the benefit of this offense right here, right now, to get the most out of these players, just to see what we have at the quarterback position. And maybe that is why Andrew Berry hasn't brought in somebody else other than just building the depth. So everybody kind of has receivers to throw the ball to. But crazy to think that you look at what we think could maybe be an area of opportunity for the team turns into an area of, just strength in the long run, which is, again, kind of crazy to think. Dustin, real quick before we move on from that, why don't you tell our listeners about Lady Caroline?
Well, guys, Lady Caroline, that's right. Awesome ship. By the way, I was talking to those guys earlier this week. We're looking at maybe a fall cruise for Lady Caroline for Here We Go Brownies cruise this fall with all the Here We Go Brownies crew. Looking forward to that. And then, of course, right next door to Lady Caroline, you have our great friends over at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. And that's right, Allie. I have a date. We have a date for Inside the Shark Tank. David is going to love this. July 2nd, Dustin will be live in the Shark Tank for that show. So there you go, David. You got your wish. We're inside the Shark Tank, July 2nd.
That's 2 weeks away.
I know. Beautiful. It's 2 weeks away. Get ready. Sharks are coming. But we're going to do a show from there and showcase some of the things that they do down there. Just a quick snapshot and show people around there what they do down there at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. Like I said, if you guys have never been in there, there's a lot of cool things. Like you can pet the stingrays. Like it's a very cool exhibit. I didn't know what to think of it until I went in there, but there's a lot of different things at the Greater Cleveland Aquarium. If you've got kids or grandkids or just looking to go do a self-guided tour or a talking tour for them down, it's really cool. So
yeah, really cool. Also, guys, we want to tell you about our friends over at True Fan Travel. Welcome to True Fan Travel. They just think of them as your ultimate sports road trip buddy. They're all about bringing you closer to the heart-pounding action of your favorite away games. Whether you're cheering from the stands or soaking in the local vibes, they make sure that every trip is packed with those I was there moments. So grab your gear, make some memories with True Fan Travel. I just want to go through Yeah,
And I was
sorry,
just
Dustin,
going
go
to
ahead.
say, yeah, I was going to say, of the 3 trips that they have partnered with, everybody is well versed that they're going to London with the Browns, a bus trip to Detroit, and Las Vegas 2.0 are the 3 trips that are highlighted to you can book with those guys. True Fan Travel with the Browns fans.
Yeah. I want to just kind of a quick exercise go around the league with those teams that drafted quarterbacks or brought in quarterbacks, quarterback needy teams this past off season, and I want to kind of just play a game, go around the room of who we think is going to win the quarterback battle, and this is just for week 1, not maybe who's going to have most of the reps for this team, but let's kick it off with the New York Football Giants. David, I'll start with you. Who do you think starts week 1 for the New York Football Giants?
Oh, that is it's going to be Russ. I think it's Russ.
It's Russ. It's Russ, right?
We love Jameis. We're obviously big Jameis fans around here. He is he's a great player. He's great energy, but like they brought Russ in to be that guy. Jackson Dart's not going to get the job over him. I think Russ is the starter week 1.
Yeah, that's what do you think, Russ?
They're gonna let Russ cook till he can't cook. So they're gonna put Russ in, let him do his thing, and but they're Dart's there in the wings, so that's.
Yeah. I think maybe there's a world where like maybe Jackson Dart comes in week 6 or whatever, and kind of takes it from there. But week 1, my money is on Russ. Similarly, let's go into Pittsburgh, Dustin. I mean, I think we all kind of know what this is going to look like week 1 for the Steelers. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be Aaron Rodgers. You don't wait that long and not pick a quarterback until the 5th round if you're not having Aaron Rodgers as your starting quarterback. And I'm sure DK Metcalf appreciates that now he has a legitimate quarterback that can throw the ball to him. Now, this will be interesting if Russ is cooking and Aaron Rodgers is playing. I think isn't that a week 1 rematch of the Jets versus the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Oh, let me look. That's a good question.
I think that's week 1. I could be wrong, but I think it's a week 1 matchup, the Jets versus the Steelers, where the former quarterback.
Yep. It is. That is.
the former quarterback of the Jets takes on the former quarterback of the Steelers. Like they just.
Well. Yes. Okay. Yes. Sorry. My brain just went on a little trip there. I saw a hummingbird and I went somewhere. Yes, I think that'll be very interesting. My mom and dad have this little hummingbird feeder, and there's been one that's just been like staring at me. So I think that will be interesting.
Allie's like squirrel. No.
Yeah, I just went somewhere. Sorry about that, everybody. Yeah, it's Aaron Rodgers, right, David?
Yep, Aaron Rodgers is going to be the starter.
All right, David, turning it over to you. The New Orleans Saints, they've got a kind of an interesting situation going on down there. What do you think?
I think week 1, starter, who they're going to bring out, I think it's going to be Spencer Rattler still. I think he's the man that has the job currently, although, I mean, to be fair with you, I don't know a ton about them. We don't follow them that closely, even though they're only 3 hours away from us right now. I think Spencer Rattler's job to lose, obviously, especially with Derek Carr retiring this offseason. If you look at ESPN's depth chart, they have Tyler Shook as the number 1 QB. I don't know a thing that's happened in their camp, so I can't speak towards that. But I think it's going to be Spencer Rattler. You think it might be Shook?
My money's on Tyler Shook. I mean, like you said, we're not plugged into Saints football, so really don't know what's going on in OTAs down there. But I mean, I think that Spencer Rattler, he obviously has the experience, but I mean, they spent a pretty decent draft asset on Tyler Shook, and it's not like he's competing against Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr's out of there, so my money's on Tyler Shook. What do you think, Dustin?
I've got a hot take, and this is a hot take. I don't think they're starting quarterbacks on their roster. I don't think he's on their roster. I think we could still see the Cleveland Browns trading someone like Kenny Pickett to the New Orleans Saints for a wide receiver. And what I mean by that is they have a head coach in my guy, Kellen Moore, who knows a hell of a lot about Kenny Pickett because he was there the entire season with him over with the Philadelphia Eagles. And if they don't like what they see in the room, I think that I don't know. I think they could get aggressive, I mean, and by the way, nothing against Kenny Pickett playing for the Browns, but if you're a new head coach and you know that guy, right? You've been in that room with him, you know his ceiling, his floor, you know in the quarterback room, you're the offensive coordinator, you know that guy inside and out. And if you go to the front office and go, if the Browns want to trade him, go get him. You know what I mean? Like it's not crazy to me. Like it's not crazy for them to go do something like that.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think it'll be Tyler Shuck though. That's my guess. And then let's finish it out here with the Cleveland Browns. Who's the guy week 1?
David, you want to go or you want me to go? Oh, I think I lost David. Is he on mute?
Here.
He's muted. You're muted, David.
Sorry, it broke up and I couldn't hear anything. What were you?
Oh, who's the start? Yeah, who's the starting quarterback for the Browns? That was the question.
For the Browns, that's the question. I think week 1 is Joe Flacco.
Yeah.
I think he's obviously familiar with the organization. 2 years ago, he was brought in for that role. I don't think he's the starter at the end of the year or even halfway through the year, but I think week 1 he's the one who's QB1.
Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I think Joe Flacco. The reason Joe Flacco even said this in an interview. By the way, I love Joe Flacco interviews. The TikTok thing that went viral about him saying like people that get on TikTok and dance, they need to be an adult. I thought that was hilarious. It's Joe Flacco week 1. That's why he's not getting reps because he doesn't need them. And then I would put 1A, 1B, Dylan Gabriel, Shador Sanders, and Kenny Pickett is not on this football team, unfortunately. I don't see him. He's not here. I think some team gets desperate. Some player gets hurt on another team, unfortunately, and we go in with 3 quarterbacks. Because we're not going to trade. I don't think we're going to trade our rookies. I mean, because they're cheap and they have a higher ceiling because A, price, and B, you can develop those guys and see what they're really made out of.
Yeah, I'm with Flacco. That's my week 1 prediction is that it's Joe Flacco. But I think David, when we look at the rest of this season, if the gap is pretty close, right, where these rookies, whether it's either one of them, is close to Joe Flacco, I think they'll get the opportunity, to start some games and see what we have in those players, because we're kind of doing the team a disservice if the gap is pretty close and we're not playing them and we don't see what we have in these players. So, but week 1, it's Joe Flacco. That's my prediction, barring any injuries or anything crazy going on. Because you never know what's going to happen, Dustin, as you mentioned. Dustin, let me kick it over to you real quick. Tell our listeners about Lake Erie Distillery.
Yeah, guys, if you haven't had Lake Erie Distillery, go get it. Check it out at one of your local Northeast Ohio liquor stores, or ask it for it in your favorite restaurant or bar. They have Ohio's #1 dill pickle vodka, Burning River cinnamon whiskey, and a bunch of other amazing whiskeys, as well as rums and other flavors. But go check them out. You can pick up a bottle anytime during the day from 1 to 5, typically over there in Willoughby. If you're in that area and you just want to stop by their actual distillery and pick it up. But yeah, that's Lake Erie Distillery over there in Willoughby, Ohio. Support local and support a great group of family over there.
There you go. I also want to tell you about our friends over at We Bleed Ohio. If you're looking to get your official Here We Go Brownies podcast t-shirt or hat or sweatshirt, you can check it out there. Or if you're looking to get some baseball themed apparel, football or basketball, you can check them out over at We Bleed Ohio. If you're looking for some cool memorabilia, Dustin, where can they find that?
Oh, yeah. So, guys, Primetime Sports and Framing. And by the way, I got a couple announcements for these guys. Anybody that is a huge Ohio State fan and wants to go this weekend, Saturday, this is in Belden Village. Allie, you're probably familiar with that place in Canton, Ohio. That is where Primetime Sports' new store is. You can go from 1 to 2, and Trayvon Henderson will be there signing autographs and doing a meet and greet. And if you can't make that and you're a big fan of the Cleveland Guardians, on Monday, I will be there. This will be fun. David Fry will be at the Great Northern Mall store. And I'm biased. He's from Idaho. Kyle Manzardo will be in attendance as well. So Kyle Manzardo, mustache. Can't miss him.
Can't miss him. All right, guys. Any closing thoughts before we wrap up on a beautiful Wednesday evening?
Let's see. Everybody, again, come out tomorrow to the David Njoku softball game. If you're in Cleveland, Here We Go Brownies will be doing coverage from the field. everybody that won tickets to that, we look forward to seeing y'all out there. Allie, we gave away about 30 pairs of tickets. So we have a lot of fans coming out tomorrow. So that's going to be super cool to take in that. Shador, Flacco, every player is going to be there that you can imagine. Michael Irving, the former Cowboy star, will be there. A lot of folks will be there, but it'll be fun. And David Njoku said he is not losing this year, and he's not going to let someone like Travis Kelce come in and win the home run derby. So it'll be interesting to see all those guys tomorrow. Weather looks like it's going to participate hopefully for tomorrow night. A ton of the lights. So gates open at 4:30. Home run derby's at 6. Game starts at 7.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. I would love to be there, but I will be flying to Florida, so I will not be. But I will.
David will be very appreciative of that.
Yes, David, will you be appreciative of that?
The most appreciative. I can't wait.
All right, that's all we got. That's all we got, everybody. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate you. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, Browns fans, go Browns.
Go Browns.
Go Browns.